This is Duke University.
We've organized this event as part of sort of a welcome back, especially for students and faculty who've been away, to update people on what has been going on this summer in North Carolina around Moral Mondays. It really has been a fascinating and important summer for social justice in North Carolina, and I would argue in the world. One of the things that the Duke Human Rights Center sets out to do is to connect the world of human rights to what we are doing right here. And I think Moral Mondays is a perfect example of how people are standing up for human rights here in North Carolina and are connected to other human rights movements all over the world and using, being inspired by some of the same techniques, and also really putting into practice the idea of civil disobedience for causes as important as an end to the death penalty and support for our schools and healthcare system, among the many issues that Moral Monday focuses on.
I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and I had always been very aware of the issue of civil rights because I actually had the opportunity to go to school with black children and Puerto Rican children, Italian children in a suburb of Boston. And I went to a church which taught me the social gospel and made me believe that there was a connection between what mattered in the world and the issues of social justice. When I came to North Carolina as a young scholar, I knew I wanted to write about civil rights. And I also knew that I did not want to write about civil rights from the top down, because when I came to North Carolina, there was a book out called John F. Kennedy and the Second Reconstruction, as though John F. Kennedy had made the civil rights movement happen. Not the way it happened. Not the way it happened. It happened from the bottom up. And so I started to write a book about a community named Greensboro, and the 4 young first-year college students. All you college students, think about this, who took it upon themselves to change history, who talked to each other all semester long about what they could do to dramatize the absurdity and the immorality of segregation. And that's what led them on one February afternoon to go downtown to Woolworths and buy their products at the toiletry area and the paper area, and then take their receipts and go to the lunch counter and sit down and ask for a cup of coffee. And they were told, we don't serve colored people here. They stayed there and studied all afternoon. They went back to campus. The next day, 23 of their colleagues came. The day after that, 66. The day after that, 100. The day after that, 1,000. Within 8 weeks, those demonstrations had spread to 54 cities in 9 different states, and the direct action phase of the student civil rights movement had started. That was the most significant event of post-World War II America. Now, it did not happen from the top down. It happened from the bottom up. And that's what this is all about. This is people, in a sense, deciding that they need to take a stand and do something. It was also the beginning of a different kind of North Carolina history. The other thing you want to think about is the Wilmington Race Riot of 1898, when, in response to the leadership of the best white men in the state, people were encouraged to fill the Cape Fear River with black bodies in order to prevent white women from being attacked by black men. These are the best white people circulating these ideas. And that in turn led to not only the race riot, but then disenfranchisement, Jim Crow in North Carolina, and North Carolina became as bad as any place else in terms of segregation. That's what the 4 sit-in people were trying to overcome and turn around. And what happens here is that we are in danger of going back in history unless we retrieve the history that we're proud of. And if we think about our modern history as not only the 4 people sitting in, or the students from North Carolina Central and elsewhere who took part in the '63 demonstrations, but also all the people who came around after that. If we think about the fact that Terry Sanford, as governor, was a good friend of Jesse Jackson, who was a leader of the 1963 sit-ins in Greensboro. If we think about the fact that we turned a corner in 1960 as a state in terms of our history. And we moved toward at least a greater degree of justice and concern for those who were left out. And what we have encountered in the last year and a half and 2 years is in effect an effort to seize back that history and to return to the days of Jim Crow. And when you think of 500,000 people being denied Medicaid, when you think of women being denied the right to choose, when you think of preschools, the most important education you can get, being terminated or eliminated, when you think of all the things this legislature has done, highlighted by the voter ID law, what does that remind you of? It reminds you of the worst days of Jim Crow, going back to a very different kind of history. And so one of the reasons that I and Bob Korstad and my wife and a number of other people called raging grannies went and got arrested was because we wanted to essentially stand up and say, no, this is not going to be allowed. We didn't think we were going to persuade the state legislators to change their votes. They are hardened in their convictions, even if they are unjustifiably elected. I mean, the Democrats won 49.5% of the vote, but they got 1/3 of the seats. Well, that tells you something about what went on in terms of gerrymandering. But we were not trying to change their minds. We were trying to change the minds of people like you in this room, people all over the state who care about the history that's being attacked. It's being lost. It's being undermined. And so we felt that by doing this, and then by writing about it in op-ed pieces, by joining a bunch of scholars elsewhere, by joining with the cross-state coalition of people of all ages, of all races, of all backgrounds, and taking this stand, we might even have a chance of sustaining, preserving, and advancing our history, not losing it. So, thank you.
So there's a quote by John Hope Franklin actually, and I'm pretty sure that it's, I cannot imagine how knowing one's history would not urge one to be an activist. And I think that that statement really applies to what drove me to be involved in Moral Mondays. I'm from Durham. I've grown up here my entire life. I've grown up very aware of Durham's rich history. I've grown up going to different activist events that my mom has led. In my senior year of high school, I did an independent study about the African American history of Durham. I learned about Black Wall Street, Pauli Murray, and then, yes, last year, my first year of Duke, I took the Pauli Murray class with Professor Lau. We helped organize the Still Walking for Justice event. I walked for Joanne Price, who led the Mount Olive Pickle boycott at the Kroger right down the street from my house. And I actually was friends with Joanne Price's granddaughter. I have just always felt very connected to the history of Durham and North Carolina. I also, last semester, I took, I think he's here, Professor Korstad, or did he?
He was.
Okay, well, I took the Insurgent South with him, and I learned about the rich history in the South of struggle and progress with the North Carolina Fund, and I'm very passionate about it, and when I heard about what was happening, I wanted to get involved. So the first time that I went to Moral Monday, I took this shirt, the Still Walking for Justice, I'm walking for Joanne Price. So this is the shirt that I wore at the Still Walking for Justice event, which was from the Pauli Murray marker in Durham to the 1947 Journey of Reconciliation marker in Chapel Hill. And I wore it. And then I also wore some green pants, just to, I don't know, look like a hippie. And then the globe earrings that my mom wore when she was a public school teacher, and because my mom has inspired me a lot, and also just like thinking about how I care about the world and justice and peace. So I wore those things, and when I wore it, I really thought about different people who have inspired me, like Joanne Price, when she led the boycotts outside of the Kroger, she had a pickle tiara that was made of like construction paper, and I just thought of all those people. And I remember I went to the Durham Farmers Market and I got on the bio bus or something, and like I saw Professor Lau, I saw all of these different people from Durham People's Alliance, and I was thinking of like the 1960s and when people just got on the bus and did these things to make a difference. You don't know what your actions will do, but you do it because everything matters. And I remember people were like singing freedom songs. I just had this feeling of utter excitement. And it was just really powerful. And I remember we got to, I'm blanking on what it's called, but the field outside of the state legislature. And I just like saw all the people. I saw Reverend Barber up on the stage. People were like linking arms, singing "We Shall Overcome." And I really just had tears in my eyes because it was this moment where everything that I've studied, it was just there. And I was like a part of the next struggle. It was also really cool for me because I was wearing this shirt and there were people there who were activists with Joanne Price, and they were like, "Oh, you know Joanne Price?" And I was like, "Well, I did a project about her, like I marched for her." And it was just so cool because I was a part of this next struggle, and that was really and I like got to hear more stories about her, and so that was just really incredible. And standing outside the buses when people who got in prison, like watching everyone drive off, it was really meaningful. And so then I kept going, and I remember that I saw Professor Korstad at one of the events, and he was about to go to South Africa for Duke Engage South Africa, and he was like, "Well, I better see you next week in the mugshots of the paper." And I really did want to be arrested. I was thinking about it, but some people convinced me after I did some research that it could hurt my chances for, I don't know, grad school or whatever. So I thought that a better thing that I could do was, to use my voice. And so I wrote an article in the Herald Sun about why I, as a student and as a young person, was inspired to be a part of Moral Mondays. And it worked out so much better than getting arrested because it got shared by a lot of different news sources, and I feel like a lot of different people read it, and it was really awesome, and it was really great to just to get that out there. Something else that has also been really cool this summer about the Moral Mondays is because of the Still Walking for Justice event, and because I was in the Polly Murray class with Professor Lau, I got to be in contact with Ann Atwater, who I learned about in high school and who has been like one of my greatest idols. She was an activist in Durham for housing rights, and she co-chaired the Save Our Schools campaign with C.P. Ellis that helped improve Durham schools. And C.P. Ellis was exalted Cyclops of the Ku Klux Klan, and he ended up tearing up his membership card after they worked together. And so I visited her after I was interning at Historic Stagville, which was the largest slave plantation in North Carolina. And after I would leave Stagville, I would visit Ann, or Mama Ann, as I call her now. And I would tell her about what was happening at Moral Mondays. She's on dialysis. She's stuck on a bed, but it was just amazing to like tell the person who has inspired me so much. And given me all this energy about what I was doing, and it was just a really cool moment, because if she could get up and walk, she would. And so, yeah, I guess you wanted me to talk about...
Why should students care?
Yeah, well, students really need to care. It was really hard for me at first because a lot of my friends, or just a lot of people I know, like don't know about what's happening. And a lot of my local friends who don't go to Duke, but who I knew from high school and stuff, didn't even know what's happening in North Carolina. And like, a lot of this stuff is impacting us. Even people at Duke need to care about this. Even if you're not from North Carolina, like the stuff with voter rights, this matters. And not even about voting, we need to care. This is our future. I mean, everything that we have, people have put their bodies on the line and made sacrifices so that we can enjoy, all these privileges. And we're the people who need to fight for the next generation, and this matters.
Produced by Duke University, online at duke.edu.